Open today with the Donovan Mitchell news, the possibilities surrounding him. Donovan Mitchell now, the Utah Jazz open for business after sending away Rudy Gobert. Where will Mitchell wind up being traded to? That's where so much of the conversation in the NBA has gone. And we showed you Bobby Marks with a suggestion yesterday on NBA Today for a hypothetical trade that would take care of the two big orders of business in the NBA right now. It would move Kevin Durant from Brooklyn to Phoenix. You see the Nets would wind up with Donovan Mitchell. The Pacers would get the big man DeAndre Ayton, whom they clearly like, and the Jazz would start their rebuilding around Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas, and a whole bunch of draft picks. Now, notably absent from that, as I bring the Tims back this morning, Tim Legler and Tim Bontemps, notably absent from that, and wherever he is on his vacation right now, Stephen A. Smith is yelling at the screen. How about the Knicks? How about the Knicks? He has wanted Donovan Mitchell forever, and so have they. Yep. Where are they in this?
They're in pursuit of Donovan Mitchell, and I think ultimately they're going to wind up with Donovan Mitchell. And that's because, to your point, since Leon Rose got to the Knicks in 2020, they have been preparing for this moment. They've been stockpiling draft picks. He came from CAA. Donovan Mitchell is rep by CAA. They have been waiting to get a star player. Donovan Mitchell is the first star that's truly become available. They have 8 first-round picks to trade. Danny Ainge, as you said, got a bunch of first-round picks from the Minnesota Timberwolves for Rudy Gobert. I think the Knicks are perfectly positioned to finally get a star, get Donovan Mitchell back home to New York.
All right, so Tim Legler, let's talk about it. If they're able to make a draft pick-based trade, and they have all those first-rounders into the future, if they're able to make a trade that is based primarily in that, what would it make the New York Knicks going forward with Donovan Mitchell?
All right, well, first of all, I agree that they should go for this if they have an opportunity to do it. They need a guy that's got that kind of star power. He's got the personality and the charisma also that they're going to eat up in New York. But here's the real question. How much does Donovan Mitchell make the Knicks climb rungs in the ladder in the Eastern Conference? If we're being honest about it, I think they're still probably a play-in team. I don't think that the New York Knicks then would be a team that's guaranteed to be in the top 6. I think they're somewhere in that play-in format. As good as Donovan Mitchell is, and he's an elite level scorer, I don't know that he moves the needle in terms of making the Knicks a contender. They would still be another, I think, either good, very good to great player away from getting into the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. It's just too good at the very top. And then there's teams in that 5-6 spot. When you look at Toronto and Chicago, I don't even think the Knicks necessarily would be better than them.
I agree with you completely, Tim, but to your point earlier, he is a star, and he could attract potentially other stars down the road. The Knicks have been waiting to get that first star, Donovan Mitchell being available. That is why it's important to them. He doesn't lift their ceiling right now that much, but he gives them upward mobility they don't have right now.
Well, so I'm looking at so they've got Jalen Brunson, who they've just paid all of. They're about to pay R.J. Barrett. I assume he's not who would be going in the other direction.
I think they'd want to keep R.J. Barrett for sure.
So is it Julius Randle? I mean, is Utah making a trade for just the draft picks, or is there the other big name here, Julius Randle, Evan Fournier? Who else would be in this trade?
I think more likely this would be built around young guys. You know, it's hard to say exactly, but the Knicks have all these picks. They have guys like Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes. They have a bunch of young players they can put in besides R.J. Barrett. I'm sure they'd love to keep R.J. Barrett in that deal. So it's those other young guys, draft picks, that I think is the primary thing that's going to be the driver in this trade.
All right. So, I mean, these are all the possibilities that are out there. And as Summer League comes to an end, most of the NBA goes on vacation. But I would assume the Donovan Mitchell piece of this, you just said you think we're going to wait a while on the Durant news. The Donovan Mitchell of it all feels a little bit more imminent to me sitting here, but I'm not as connected to it as you are. Is that right?
I agree with you because the Knicks in particular are motivated to go get Donovan Mitchell. So I think this, unlike the Kevin Durant situation where there's been, I would say the Nets have not gotten the kind of offers they're looking for. To me, when the Utah Jazz now are saying they're open for business, to me, that's a sign that this is going to get done.
Tim Legler yesterday on this show, sitting right where you're sitting now, at least by my standpoint, because he was in the box just like you are. Nick Friedel said that this is the player, this is the move Miami needs to make. All this talk about Miami trying to get Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is harder to get for the Miami Heat, I would assume, just because he's Kevin Durant, than Donovan Mitchell is, and that if you team Mitchell with Jimmy Butler and that core, that's the move that should be made out there. Obviously, the Knicks are trying to become relevant. The Heat are trying to win a championship. Would Mitchell put them over the top?
Well, first of all, I didn't realize Nick Friedel was in my house yesterday. Apparently, you're saying he was sitting where I'm sitting right now. So I didn't see Nick. He should have at least stopped in the kitchen and said hi when I was eating breakfast. I did not see him. So give him credit. He's ninja-like in his ability to get in and out of houses. But, yeah. Looking at the Heat, listen, I actually would love Donovan Mitchell to be there because the one thing that Miami was exposed for late in the season was their inability to create offense individually outside of Jimmy Butler. I mean, Bam Adebayo had a very disappointing postseason. Even Tyler Hero, I know he dealt with injuries later in the year, but even before that, he was not the same player early in the playoffs that he was in the regular season. And they were exposed, I think, in that way. And it's just a tough sledding to go and let Jimmy Butler be the lone guy that can go create offense in these big moments. So I think Donovan Mitchell there makes a lot of sense if they're able to make that happen. Look, Donovan Mitchell is the type of player that can absolutely get you to another tier, but I think if you're talking about going to a place like the Knicks, that's an awful lot to ask to get into that top 4, which is what we're talking about right now. If he goes to Miami, maybe some people would think that could potentially be the favorite to win the East, although you look at Boston, Milwaukee, and what they've got right now, it is very difficult to break through, but I actually love the pairing of Mitchell and Butler hypothetically.
I think he'd be an incredible fit in Miami. They cannot outbid the Knicks. I just don't think they can get past the Knicks and give Utah enough to get a deal done.
Does Mitchell have any say in that? I mean, does he get to choose that to any degree?
I think to some degree, but the Knicks have enough to offer. It's not like he's going to someplace he doesn't want to be. He wants to be in New York.
And so a final thought on all of this for the moment is how are these things, if at all, intertwined? Which is to say, we got trade scenarios that people are proposing. You have them, Bobby Marks has them, everyone does, that have Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Durant in them. If Mitchell gets traded to the Knicks, or even the Heat in the scenario we're talking about, right now we're not discussing those in the realm of four-way trades. So if Mitchell gets traded to the Knicks, is that a signal that it's less likely that Durant winds up getting to?
Yeah, I think Donovan Mitchell's the kind of young star the Nets would love to get back in this kind of a deal. If he goes off the board, it's yet another reason to think Kevin Durant's going to be a Net next season.
Look, I mean, reading the tea leaves, I said it here on Monday, and I've said it before. Mine is that rare genius that will not be fully appreciated until after my time. The way this is all going to end up is the Nets are going to run it back.
You just want to be going back to predicting the Nets are great again next
year. Yes, look, I picked them to go to the championship last year, and they didn't win a single playoff game. They got to make me look right somehow. Don't forget.
Donovan Mitchell, he's arguably been the most productive player from the 2017 draft class that we just saw. Markelle Fultz, Lonzo Ball, Jason Tatum, they're the top 3 picks. Mitchell was the 13th. He leads all players in career points, threes, and steals, and he ranks 3rd in assists. So I now welcome in NBA reporter Tim McMahon. And Tim, our own ESPN senior insider Adrian Wojnarowski, he recently reported that the Utah Jazz, they are taking calls on Donovan Mitchell. What's the latest you are hearing out of Utah on if the Jazz are indeed looking to move Mitchell?
Yeah, and Justin Zanuck and Danny Ainge, when they talked to the media on Saturday, they acknowledged Donovan's not untouchable. Now they try to say there's no intent to trade him, but certainly that translated to the rest of the NBA of, hey, we're taking calls, get your bids in. And what I'm hearing from folks who have talked to people with the Jazz in Las Vegas is that they say, listen, we basically got 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert. We can get more than that for Donovan Mitchell, 6 first-rounders, 7 first-rounders. And obviously, this is a team, you look what they got back for Gobert. It's picks, swings at young talent on controllable contracts, and financial relief.
Interesting. So how long do you expect this to play out between Donovan Mitchell, the Utah Jazz, and any other teams that could get involved here?
Well, time is on the Jazz's side. Obviously, training camp doesn't open up for 2.5 months. He does have 3 years plus a player option remaining on his contract. And I think the question is, how patient are the New York Knicks willing to be? They've got everything the Jazz want. Obviously, they've got a huge stockpile of picks. They've been setting things up to make a play for Donovan Mitchell since the day that Leon Rose was hired as Knicks president. If they want to push all those chips to the table, it might not take very long, but we know Danny Ainge's reputation. Trader Danny, as one source told me, wants the house.
Interesting. So stick around, Tim, because I want you to hear some of these proposed trade packages that we have. The Jazz, they are full of draft capital after the Rudy Gobert trade to Minnesota between their own picks, the ones coming from the Timberwolves, the other swaps, trades. The Jazz, 12 first-round picks through the 2029 NBA draft. I mean, even Sam Presti's going, ooh, buddy, all right. Let's bring back in Brian Windhorst along with Bobby Marks and Nick Friedel. We want to play a little game of who says no, all right? So, Bobby, how this is going to work, please pitch us on a Donovan Mitchell trade, and you gentlemen tell me if any one of you think that someone should say no, the teams involved would decline this. So, Bobby, what's the first package here?
Well, the first package is the R.J. Barrett package. Remember, the Knicks have 8 first-round picks that they can include in a trade. So when you look at R.J. Barrett, Derrick Rose, Cam Reddish, we're not giving all 8 first-round picks, 5 first-round picks, including 4 protected first. That would go to the Utah Jazz in that type of package there, Malika.
Interesting. All right. So, Tim, would you say no to this, McMahon?
So what I don't know about Utah is if they're interested in a player like R.J. Barrett, who is about to finish his rookie contract and is due to get probably a max contract on his next deal. My suspicion is, as they're entering a rebuild, they might be hesitant there. So I'm going to say no as the Jazz.
Okay. Bobby, what do we got next?
Well, this is the picks package, right? Not all 8, but we're going to put 7 first-round picks in the deal, and we're going to do Evan Fournier, Quentin Grimes, and Cam Reddish. I think, Malika, you can swap out Fournier for the expiring contract of Derrick Rose if you want to, as far as for there. And that actually might be the most appealing package if you're the Utah Jazz.
Mr. Windhorst, I heard you sigh. Are you saying no to this?
So I actually think that this is probably something like the Jazz would want. I think they would want the number 7 to set our all-time record. I think Ainge would love to do that in addition to setting up his team. And I think if you're the Knicks, you're going to say, look, if I'm going to go that deep, if I'm going to give you this many picks, I've got to get more value than just Donovan Mitchell. I've got to offload some salary. In the Gobert deal, it was the Jazz offloading all the salary. They offloaded more than $140 million long-term in that deal. In this case, if you were going to get 7 first-round picks, I definitely want to get off of money, and Evan Fournier would help them get off of money. But it wouldn't surprise me if initially, in initial talks, the Jazz would say, no, we don't want any long-term money. We'd rather have Derrick Rose because he's only got 1 year left on his contract.
Okay, so Bobby, I understand you have one more. Bring on the heat. What you got?
We got the South Beach package here, and I think it certainly starts with Tyler Hero. Remember, we just talked about R.J. Barrett as far as Hero's extension eligible. Can sign that extension this offseason. Duncan Robinson, Nikola Jovic. They can only trade 3 first-round picks, so it's 2023, 2027, and 2029. They would have to lift the protection they owe Oklahoma City in that 2025 first they owe them. But that's basically the most that Miami could offer Utah in a Mitchell trade.
Mr. Friedel, your family's from down in Florida. What do you think of this one?
The Heat would do this deal in an instant, I feel like, Malika, but they need more picks. And if we're going to make this happen in Miami, they've got to find a way to get some more draft capital in play. I think Mitchell would fit great with Jimmy Butler, but from all the offers out there, I think it's going to be tough unless Miami makes a couple more deals to get the first rounders that Ainge and the Jazz are looking for.
Interesting. All right, Tim McMahon, since you're our resident Utah insider here, are there any sleeper teams, packages that we're not potentially thinking about that you have heard buzzing around out there?
Well, I think the one scenario that is interesting is a multi-team deal that sends Donovan Mitchell to Brooklyn. And that's complicated for a lot of reasons anytime you get multiple teams involved, but also the simple fact that you cannot have Donovan Mitchell and Ben Simmons on the roster. You cannot have 2 guys on rookie max deals, both traded there. I tell you what, if Ben Simmons landed in Utah, though, it would be fascinating for a number of reasons. And I do wonder, coming off of a year off, if he would be eligible for Rookie of the Year again. Last time he took a year off, he won Rookie of the Year. Can he repeat? It's a question. Bobby might have the answer. I don't know. I'm asking.
I don't think anybody's have the answer.
In Utah. Mr. Windhorst, is there anything else that you are looking at or hearing as we talk about Donovan Mitchell as it pertains to any potential trades?
Yeah, so I think really what league executives are saying, Malika, is that this is all going to be a maneuver to get the most they possibly can out of the New York Knicks. They know the New York Knicks are probably the most desperate team here. They're the ones who are in need of a star, and they have the most ammunition to trade. And so whatever might happen in the coming days, any saber rattling the Jazz do, any other leaks that come out there, may all be aimed at getting the most out of the team that has the most to pay. And so I do think there's a good chance Donovan Mitchell is going to end up on the Knicks at the end of this. And I think we're going to see a historic pick haul, even if the Knicks try to play hardball between now and then.